everyone, welcome to another Jenna Rae Cakes tutorial. This one is obviously a little bit different. Obviously not in my home, I'm in our commercial kitchen space here at Jenna Rae Cakes. Usually this place would be hustling and bustling right now, but unfortunately because of coronavirus, we've dwindled our staff down next to nothing. So I'm here alone making my cake for my daughter. It's her birthday on Friday. And obviously not the first birthday that we planned for her, but definitely still gonna make her a crazy cake because that's what I'm gonna do every year for her the rest of her life, so hopefully she loves it. She loves nothing more than Elmo and Sesame Street. It's what makes her the happiest, and I can't wait to make this for her. So I've sketched up something, if you can see it there. So it's Elmo sitting with a 4-inch smash cake in the middle of his legs there. So I've baked 6-inch cakes here, some rounded cakes we actually just made in stainless steel bowls, just so I don't waste as much cake and it kind of gives me the shape to work with. So it's gonna be sitting here. This is his head. This is just extra for now. And then this will be the 4-inch smash cake in between his legs. And his legs and his arms I think I'm gonna do out of Rice Krispie treats. So that's what I use when obviously they're really skinny and I don't wanna use cake for them because that won't really work. Rice Krispie treats are a great option. They are light and they hold their shape really well, so it's a good medium to work with. When you're making a custom cake for customers, you want to make sure that you have artistic license, because as I'm going with this tutorial, I will use things that I didn't think of. I'll maybe change the design a little bit. If something's kind of working better off one way than another, I'll go that. So when you're doing cakes like this, you really want to have that freedom. So I always make sure to ask my clients if I do have that freedom, because it makes your life a lot easier and then you can kind of use your creativity to the maximum potential. So I have my buttercream here that I'll be using to stack the cakes. I did vanilla sprinkle because I figured that was a good flavor for her first birthday. I have a big serrated knife here. We're going to be doing lots of carving, so that's good to have. My offset spatula, I have this guy, my trusty cake scraper. Just to note, this isn't everything I'm going to be using, and I'll probably get to a lot more. So I'm going to have a detailed list of everything that I used when I'm finished, when I know what that is. My cake turntable, I have this little one to go on top of the cake probably. A little smash cake, obviously take it out before she smashes it. But if you want to learn how to do these guys, watch my tutorial on 2D toppers. I just did one on that. I have some cake boards here. I have some dowels for support because we'll definitely need those. Lots of different things. I'll be using a lot of different things as we get going. I'll use fondant and whatever else I think that I need. So if you're going to attempt doing this cake, I would suggest watching through the tutorial first, making notes on what you need, and then starting again, because there's going to be a lot coming at you right away. So hopefully you guys like it and you learn a lot, and yeah, I'm excited to make this one. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm gonna get started. I have just a 12-inch cake board here, so I'm gonna start building him on this instead of the big guy, just because I'm gonna decorate that separately and then transfer him over when he's done. So I'll start stacking the cake. So I have tutorials on how to cut and stack your cakes. So that's pretty much what I'm doing here. I'm gonna stack it the way I normally would, in the shape that I'm kind of thinking I'm gonna go with. And then gonna carve away his shape, obviously because he's not perfectly round like this. So just a little bit of buttercream on the bottom because I'm gonna be topping him off eventually, so I wanna make sure that it's not too crazy. Okay, so I think this is a good height for his body. So because it's getting pretty tall, I'm gonna start supporting him. So I just take my plastic dowels. These don't have to be perfect because you're not worried about it being level, because you're obviously carving it, so it's not like a tiered cake or anything. So you can just cut them however you think they need to go. So I'm just doing 4, and then because I'm going to be carving away, I'm going to keep them a little bit tighter, because you don't want to be carving it away and then the dowel shows through, and then you're kind of exposing that unintentionally. So just to give it support, so now I'm not worried about him falling over or anything like that. So with the head here, I'm going to go ahead and add a 5-inch board. So this is a 6-inch board. So I'm just going to cut a rough circle a bit smaller. This doesn't have to be perfect because, again, it's not being used for like a tier cake or anything like that. It's just more for support. So you just want to kind of guesstimate how big his neck is going to be. So I think I could keep his neck about that big. So I just cut out about that much. Very technical, I know. And then just put some buttercream underneath. Okay. And so this is his backside. So backs are usually pretty straight and the tummy kind of goes in and then out. So I'm gonna put his neck or his head sitting a little bit back. And then his neck will be here. I'll probably carve down here and then have his little tummy sticking out there. So you wanna kind of keep that in mind as you're stacking it as well. So I'll be keeping some of the scraps. Sometimes I use, I don't really know what it's called, cake scraps mixed with buttercream. And then I'll use that to kind of build out some shapes if I need to. If I need to make his tummy a little bit bigger, or if I need to add maybe to his legs or his arms or something, that's always good to have. So any offs, you don't need to save them all because usually there's a lot when you're carving a cake, but definitely save some of it. So with the head, I'm gonna cut the tops off, just so it's flat to work with. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like that. Sometimes I'll cut them in half again, but I feel like this is enough for this. So then add a little bit of buttercream to the top here. Stick them on. Because we baked it in a stainless steel bowl like that, it is flatter. If you have a perfectly round bottom, you're gonna wanna cut it so it's a little bit flat on the bottom, so you don't have to worry about it kind of teetering. Is that the proper word? I don't know. Teetering? Okay. So obviously this is like pretty soft right now, but when we do put it in the fridge, it's gonna firm up and the buttercream will keep it nice and firm. So, and then we're also gonna be using dowels to support it as well. Okay, so here we go. So obviously if I just left it like this, the head would fall off, which would be very traumatic, I'm sure, for a first birthday. So I'm gonna use, I think I'm gonna use this guy actually. So I'm gonna stick him right through. There we go. And then I'm gonna stick this through here. And then trim it off where his head will stick out. Okay. It's cut off. And then I'm just gonna stick him through that. And then he's gonna have a hat. So I'm gonna keep the dowel there. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this because he's gonna have a hat on. And then once I crumb coat him, I'll have a better idea of how it's feeling, and I can always go back in with some more dowels for some extra support. But for right now, we'll go let him chill like this, and then we'll start carving. Okay, so we are gonna start carving our Elmo cake. So he's been chilling in the fridge for a good hour. He's pretty sturdy, so we're ready to go here. So in terms of the shape, it is so important to get the shape right when you're carving a cake, or else no matter how much work you do on the outside and how realistic you get it, if the shape is off, it just won't look right. So you really want to focus on that. So usually if I'm doing a carved cake, I'll print out photos of like every angle. If I have the real thing, I'll bring it in. If I can just like, say if I'm doing a purse, for example, I mean, usually I don't have the purses that they want because they're all really nice purses, but if you can have something 3D to work off of, even if it's a smaller version, you can just upscale it. That's always easiest. Elmo's pretty simple of a shape, so I printed out this photo of him. Obviously it won't be exact, but it gives me some kind of idea, and I've been watching him a lot really closely when we've been watching Sesame Street with Lila, so I feel pretty confident just going off this photo and what I have in my head. But if it's a more complex shape, you really want to make sure you get that shape exactly right. So you can carve away for hours if you want to. So when you're starting to carve, just start slow and steady. You can always take off more, but you can't really add it back on as easily. So his front is here, I guess I should say that. So I'm envisioning this as his front. So you see I put his head a little far back because here's gonna be his tummy, so I'm probably gonna cut like this. So sometimes I'll kind of mark it with my knife a little bit. So in his body, it's like it kind of has his neck and he's pretty skinny and he goes into a little tummy. So that's what I'm going to start with. So I'll just slowly carve up here to his neck. So just taking off a little bit at a time. So yeah, you don't want to get too crazy because then you might take off way too much and then it's just a lot of work to try to build it back up. Okay, and then you want to make sure the shape from the front is right. So he kind of has like a pear-shaped body, and right now it's obviously square, so I need to go in and kind of smooth out that as well. Okay, so I'm getting his body sculpted pretty good there, so I'm gonna keep going, but I'm gonna start focusing on other parts of him too, and then I'll really go through it all and finalize it. So I'll work on his back a little bit. So I just wanna get his neck a little bit smoothed out here. And you have to remember too, we're going to be adding the fur, so that's going to add some width to it as well. So you always want to go a little bit smaller than you think, because that fur or the fondant or whatever you're putting on top of your carved cake is going to add a little bit of width. So if you're really trying to get that shape just right, you have to keep that in consideration as well. Okay, so then Elmo's face, it's not completely round, which is nice because it's really hard to carve a perfectly round shape. So I like the way this cake kind of is already. It's pretty good. I'm not even really going to carve it too much, which actually works out nicely. So I'm going to carve his mouth. So I want his mouth to be open. So I'm just going through. So you have to envision like his nose is going to be here, his eyes going to be back here. Nose and eyes, so. And again, this is something you can do take a little bit and then keep going. That all of a sudden makes him look so much more real. Okay, so I think his tummy may be sticking out a little bit too far there, so I'm just gonna trim it up a little bit. That's one thing I always do with my 3D figures or my carved cakes. I always make them a little bit chunkier than they are, so I always have to remind myself to go back and cut off a little bit more. So if you notice your cake is wobbling around a lot, you might need to do more support. He's pretty good so far, so that's good. Like it's pretty sturdy. And he's not attached to his final cake board yet, so when we do that, we'll attach him even more, so you don't have to worry about him moving around too much. But 3D cakes are always a little tricky with stabilizing them and moving them around. It's just always going to be stressful. So just make sure that you give yourself the best opportunity to keep it safe and stable. So you can always add more dowels if you want. It's better to be safe than sorry. But you don't want to load them up with dowels either, so it's kind of a delicate balance. So custom carved cakes can get quite pricey. As you can tell, you have to bake a lot of cake to get the shape that you want. It takes a ton of time. Cakes like this can take me anywhere from 12 hours to 24, 36, all things included. So you definitely have to charge for your time. Charging for your time is the hardest thing, I think, when I started the business. It's still hard for me to do, but it's definitely something that's worthwhile and you gotta do it. So you really want to spend a lot of time, like I said, on carving the shape because it is such an important part. You don't want to spend all your time decorating and then it still will never look right because the shape is just off. Okay, I'm liking that. Okay, so this is the shape I'm at right now, and I'm liking it so far. So with Elmo, he's got his really skinny arms, so you have to remember that those are going to be coming out of here, and then his legs will be coming kind of this way. So you have to make sure that that's going to kind of work with your plan. So I kind of just visualize it. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit more carving here. That's why it's good to have the dowel still sticking out too. It gives you a chance to hold it while you're carving. You can always trim that away later if you don't want it to be seen, but it's definitely a handy thing to have while you're doing this. Okay, so I think I'm finally happy with the shape. So I know it's hard to see because I am speeding a lot of this up when I'm going through and editing it, but this took me about 30 minutes to carve. So it's something that takes a long time, and you really got to pay attention and spend as much time on it as you need to, just so you can have the shape right from the beginning. It's so, so important. Okay, so now time to crumb coat. So I'm going to get all the crumbs off of the base as I can. Obviously, this is a very messy process. Okay, so I'm just going to use the same vanilla buttercream that I used to fill the cake. We use American style buttercream. I use Swiss meringue for fondant cakes, but this won't be fondant, so I'm going to stick with American. So I'm going to go in with my small offset spatula for this, and just start with the head and work my way around. So what your goal of this is just to cover every inch with buttercream. You don't have to worry about it being smooth or having the right kind of look. You're just catching all the crumbs, which is the whole point of a crumb coat. So just go ahead and cover them all in buttercream. Okay, so we've got a pretty good crumb coat on them. So you want to smooth it out as much as you can, but don't stress yourself out about getting it perfectly smooth, because we're going to coat it with another coat of red buttercream next, and then we're going to start on the fur. So this does not have to be perfect, but it definitely helps if you can get it somewhat smooth. Okay, and usually if I was just starting to make cakes and I wanted to do a 3D cake, I would look it up how to carve a 3D cake. And what I would always find back in the day was that you had to use pound cake or a heavy cake or whatever. You could never carve something that was like a sponge cake. Well, this is our sponge cake recipe, and it's what I always use. So it always works well for me. So that I don't think that's necessary. And then also I probably would have been stressed about his head being so big, and I'd Google that and realize I had to do half it in Rice Krispies or something like that. But this is how I carve cakes, and it's always worked out for me. So if it's wobbling all over the place or it just doesn't seem right, then yeah, definitely support it some more. But kind of use your own gut when you're doing this kind of stuff, because there's a lot of conflicting stuff out there, and it can really mess with your mind when you're trying to tackle your first carved cake. So just trust your intuition. Okay, so I'm gonna pop them back in the fridge to firm up, and then we'll start on the red fur. Alright, so our Elmo has chilled up in the fridge a bit, so I'm mixing the red color. So I've been mixing this for a while. I didn't want to show it because it's just boring to watch. But I just started off with the white buttercream, and I mixed in some Americolor red and just a little bit of orange just to get the color I was going for Elmo. And one thing when you're doing dark colors with buttercream is that it gets a little bit darker when it chills in the fridge. So keep that in mind. Like, I could keep adding food coloring, but I don't want to add too much because this can alter the taste and then also make it a little bit too liquidy. So that'll do for now. So this is just the coat that's going under the fur. So we'll see how that chills up and if we need to adjust the color at all. So then I'm just going to go in and cover my cake again, and I'm going to make it a little bit more smooth this time than the crumb coat, but just same deal. So you just want to coat your whole cake evenly in the red buttercream. Alright, so the next step I'm going to do is our cake board. So this is where Elmo is going to be sitting on along with the smash cake. So what I'm going to do to prepare this board is put some shortening on it. I do that to make the fondant stick to it. So whenever I'm doing a cake and it's sitting on a board like this and kind of carved cake, I always like to cover the board with fondant to match the theme. So sometimes I'll do like a marble effect or like a wood grain effect, just depending on the cake. Whatever's kind of going to look best with it. I think it's a nice touch, and it really elevates your cake instead of just leaving it like the plain cake board. So for this one, I'm going to do a blue sky, kind of like Elmo's World. If you've seen Sesame Street, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do kind of like a blended light blue sky, and then I'm going to do some clouds on top. So I'm going to need my fondant. So I have white here, and then I'm going to need my blue fondant. So I had some blue fondant from a product that I was doing before, so I just took some of that, and I'm just going to break it up into little pieces. That should be good. And then I'm just gonna stick it in the fondant and just mix it in. So then I'll just start kneading it until it kind of, I see like the swirly kind of sky look that I'm looking for. Then you're just gonna spread it around with your hands. All rolled out nice and evenly, so I'm just gonna take my knife and just go all the way around the edge. So the reason I do this before I put my cake on it, obviously, is so it's just easier. If you're trying to do it around a cake, it gets pretty tricky. So this is just way easier to do it before. And then I also like to let this dry overnight usually. So then when I do put my cake on it, I don't have to worry about denting the fondant or moving it or anything like that. It's just more strong that way. So if you can do it the day before, that's great. So the clouds in Elmo's world are kind of like hand-drawn, kind of kid-like. So I kind of emulated that in my cutouts. So you kind of choose where you want the front to be. So I think right there is good. So remember, Elmo's gonna be sitting back here with his legs, and the cake, there's just gonna be locking on here. So I'm just gonna place them around. I think the longer that you can look at a cake and pick up little details, I think is really cool and really interesting. And I think it really shows a level of attention to detail that maybe not a lot of people have. So I really like to include as many details as I can and really make it special and unique and custom. So that concludes the cake board part of this. So I'm going to go home because it's almost 1:00 a.m. and I'll finish this up tomorrow. So we have our Elmo chilling in the fridge. He's got his red coat on, and that's about it. We still have to do his arms and his legs and the rest of his fur and his face and his eyes and his hat, and then assemble everything together. So I'll be back tomorrow. Hello and welcome back. So this is our Elmo. So I had attached him to our table, or sorry, our cake board, and I thought I was filming it, but apparently I forgot to press the button, so I'm sorry. I'll just go over how I did that quick. So I lifted him up off of our cake board that we were making him on and placed him where I wanted to. And then I inserted 3 wooden dowels in him. So I have 2 here and then 1 through the mouth here, and you can kind of see it coming out the back. I just wanted to make sure he was supported in all ways. And then that dowel, I made the end sharp by using my X-Acto knife, just by whittling it. And then it pokes into this board a little bit so it has a little bit more stability. So now that he's all secure, I'm going to start making his arms and his legs. So I have this is the size of the board of Lila's smash cake, the 4-inch cake that's gonna go on top. The one here in our our sketch that's gonna go in the middle there. So I'm gonna place it here just so I can make his legs go around it, and then I know it's gonna fit. Okay. So I have my Rice Krispie treats here. They've just been, I made it about probably 15 minutes ago, so it wasn't too long. So then you literally just form it in the shapes that you want to. That's why it's such a good medium to work with. It's really easy, really light, and you can make whatever kind of shapes that you want with it. So Elmo's arms and legs are pretty skinny, so I'm just gonna make those shapes here off of the cake, and then I'm gonna attach them. Okay, so far I've molded his legs. So I've just stuck it into the buttercream here. And what I'm gonna be doing is covering it with a red buttercream after it's cooled a little bit, just to blend him into the rest of the body. So this is why you wanna do the base of your cake board the night before so it dries, because if this was still not firmed up, I'd be putting fingerprints in it everywhere. So you just gotta be careful. Okay, now onto his arms. So I have these little wooden dowels. Anything will do. Something, if you have like skewers for shish kebabs or whatever, you can use those. That'd be great. So I think these are candy apple sticks actually. I'm just gonna stick it in there just to give it a little bit more support. Okay, so I've got his arms and his legs done here. So I'm gonna stick it in the fridge so it firms up nice and hard, and then I will coat him in buttercream. Okay, so now that our Elmo is chilled, I'm gonna do his mouth. So his mouth is black, so I'm gonna take some black fondant and roll it out and cover up his mouth before we start the fur. So I'm gonna cut a straight line to kind of measure up to the back of his mouth. So straight line. And then I'm looking at him, I'm gonna hold it up here to see, and then kind of mark it with my fingers how big I need it. And then just cut a bigger circle than I think I'm gonna need. Do that the same with the bottom. Okay. I'm gonna use water just to get the fondant to stick. Because if I don't, it's not really gonna stick to this cold buttercream. And you wanna be sure you're not dripping or anything on your board. You just wanna be careful with that because we can clean it a little bit, but with this red buttercream and dye in here, it's really gonna be hard to clean it off. So just be aware of that. Fondant smoother here. Pick it up and use this to kind of guide it in here. And let it kind of fall till it hits the back. And then you're just kind of pressing it into the buttercream. And I'm just gonna fold it up here. Okay. You wanna make sure that it's securely attached. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my blade and just cut along the edge. And then just another press to make sure it's on there good. Okay, so there's the top of it, and I'm gonna do the bottom. Okay, so I have a piping tip here. It's the grass piping tip. It's Wilton 233. So it looks like that. I don't know if you can see it all the way over there, but it's just the typical grass. So sorry guys, I guess my storage was full, so I stopped recording there, but I was talking about how I was filling my piping bag and then I started going. So we'll start from here. So you can see I already did some of it. And I put little pads on his feet too, with just fondant, same way I did the mouth. And then with piping, you want to start at the bottom and work your way up. And because Elmo is kind of messy and a little scruffy, you can go any which way you want in terms of direction, and it gives him that like scruffy look that's very classic Elmo. So that's kind of what I'm going to go for here. So yeah, start at the bottom, work your way up. Get ready for your hand to hurt, it's gonna hurt. Take breaks when you need to. If you're finding things are getting too soft or sticking together, then just stick it back in the fridge for a little bit, let them firm up, and then keep going. So I'm gonna keep going here, and then yeah, good luck. One of the other things I forgot to mention too is sometimes with this tip you're gonna get like little strays, like you can kind of see here. So I'm not touching those yet. I'm gonna wait till they're cold, and then I'll scrape them off and then clean them up. So just wait to finish that until the end, just as a little tip. Okay, so I have finally gotten Elmo all covered with fur. So what you can do now is go in with your fingers and kind of just like play around with the little hairs to make sure that he's nice and scruffy looking. Just touch up. I kind of did this when I was going, but how's your hands feeling? Okay, so now to clean up the icing that's kind of dripped like this, you just kind of scrape it away with a little scraper. You use a butter knife or whatever you have. So you just want to scrape away the pieces that you want to get rid of. Okay. So now you take some water and a clean paintbrush, and then you just kind of rub some water onto your little red spots here. Just do a couple at a time until you can see the color kind of coming out, and then take a clean paper towel or rag or something, and then you just wipe it off. And there you go, and it's gone. So you just keep doing that around the cake where you have those little spots. Alright, so I've cleaned them up. So you can kind of see where I rubbed it away, but it's much better than big red spots. So you don't want to do it on purpose, but if you do make a mistake, you can clean it up. Alright, so now let's see what's next. Oh, because I'm putting the smash cake in the middle, I want to make sure it still fits even with the fur on. So I'm going to take the same size board that the cake is on and just slide it in here. Okay, yeah, it's still going to fit, so that's good. I might take off some of the fur, but keep your piping bag on hand just in case you need to touch up some spots. Alright, so now for my favorite part is eyeballs. I feel like when you add eyes to a cake, it just gives it a whole, well obviously it gives it life because it gives it personality, and where you put the pupils makes so much of how the expression looks in the face. So it's just my favorite part of a cake. As soon as I put eyeballs on it, I love it. So I've made eyeballs here. I've just put styrofoam balls on wire, 18 or 20 gauge wire, and then I covered them in fondant. So that's what I did for the eyeballs. And then the nose, I just formed it out of fondant. And I made him a little hat too. This is an ice cream cone underneath, and then I just layered fondant on top of it. Okay, so the placement of the eyeballs is obviously super important. I'm gonna take my eyeballs and figure out where I want facing forward. Okay, good. Okay, so when you look at the cake and the placement is just so important. So I'm gonna hold them where I want them and then push them in. Okay, perfect. So you don't want to put the pupils on before you attach to your cake because the placement of the eyeballs on your cake is really going to affect where you want to put that. So then we'll add our nose. So this nose is quite heavy, so I'm going to secure it with a dowel. Okay, so here's his eyes and his nose all attached, so he's looking pretty cute. So now I'm going to go get some black fondant and roll out his pupils. Here's one. It's coming alive. And okay, like I said, when the pupils go on, it's just so cute. Okay, so okay, his eyes are on. Okay, so now it's time to add our final cake, smash cake, into our other cake. It's getting late, I'm tired, sorry. We're almost done. Okay, so I'm just gonna slide it in. I'm not even gonna attach it with water, or sorry, buttercream or anything like that, because the weight of it's just gonna sit it there, and I'm gonna slide it out when Lila wants to smash it. So I'm just gonna slide it in, and then as long as you keep your cake level and transport, it'll be fine. Awesome. Cute. Loving it. Okay, so that is in there, and then Elmo's hat. Yeah, I'll put him in right there. So another dowel, it doesn't have to be too big, just to hold the hat on there to make sure it doesn't fall over. So I think I decided to put it right here. We got this guy, so I'm gonna fill him up with buttercream so then it won't be going anywhere. Just filled him with buttercream, and now I'm gonna stick it on. Okay, so Elmo's party hat is on there, the smash cake is in there, and then now, so I'm just gonna go in and add some final details of the cake. I'm gonna put some vegetable oil in his mouth to make sure that all the cornstarch is gone, and on his nose there's some cornstarch in his eyeballs just to clean that up a little bit, and I'm gonna hand paint Happy Birthday Lila on the board and do the clouds a little bit, and I think that is it. So stay tuned for the final reveal. Okay, so that concludes our sculpted Elmo cake. So this kind of technique and approach can be applied on all 3D carved cakes. just taking into account the size of cake you need and the carving. Every cake is completely different. In terms of carved cakes like this, I've never made the same cake twice. They're always so different. I always put my own spin on them. This is the first time I've made Elmo. I've made Cookie Monster before and some other characters, but first time for a big Elmo like this. So every cake is different in that sense, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. I kind of just go with it and see where it takes me. Getting that creative freedom from a client is always great. If you're making it just for fun at home for your kids or your friends or something like that, that's even better because then you can just do whatever you want. So have your fun with it. Just remember that start slow. You can always take more off. You can't always put it back on size-wise. Just remember to get that part right. That part's so, so important because all the time you spend on the outside won't mean anything if the shape itself isn't right. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions at all. I'd love to answer them. If you make a cake from one of my tutorials, I would love to see it. Please send it my way and let me know what else you'd like to see. So I hope Lila loves it. I'm so excited to see her face when she sees it and when she smashes the cake. I'll be sure to share photos and videos of that so you guys can see it as well if you want to. I'm really excited. Probably my favorite cake I've made so far just because of who it's for. Alright, so have fun and let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.